Okay. Now, we've been talking about domain names. Another term that is a lot of times used in tandem with that, or in place of it, or whatever you hear a lot as well, is a URL. And in the computer industry, we like all these acronyms, so we've got to be brilliant by showing how smart we are in using an acronym. But there is actually a difference between a domain name and a URL, and I'm going to explain that to you. By the way, URL, if you cared and wanted to know, stands for Universal Resource Locator. Okay, I think that's what it is. I may be wrong. But URL, Universal Resource Locator. Okay, so the difference between a domain name and a URL is really what you're typing into the address bar. You're doing it as a URL, which means it's the full, complete address of what you're typing it in, okay, the full location. Now, let's look at this example down here. You can see I've got www.betterbooks.com, okay. That is actually the domain name, or really, if you want to get really technical about it, probably betterbooks.com is the domain name, okay. The rest of it is other stuff. Okay, and it's not really part of the domain name. So what you're seeing down here is a URL, a Universal Resource Locator. This is the real address of where to find a particular page. Okay, the Better Books, www.betterbooks.com, is going to tell you basically what server it's located on. And then within that server, okay, you can see that I've got a folder, a file folder called Fiction. And within that file folder called Fiction, I've got a web page called index.html. Okay, that's my actual web page. So the URL is the full address of the website, domain name and other stuff. Okay, and it can be the subdirectory that it's located in. It can be the actual name of the file that you want it to load. Or it can be other stuff, and the reason that I use that technical term, other stuff, is because it can be other stuff. It can be virtually anything. Sometimes if it's a program that you're running, it may be something PHP, and so you're giving it the name of the program, and then it can actually be data that you're feeding to it. So sometimes when you look at a URL, you'll see the domain name, you'll see the program that it's running, and then you'll see a bunch of stuff that's information from the program. It could be your account number, it could be your birthday, it could be how many birds you have, I don't know, it could be anything. And you're going to put that all in the URL so it passes it to that program when you're running it. Okay, so technically a URL and a domain name are not the same thing. Okay, typically a URL is going to have more stuff than just the domain name. It's going to have a domain name in it and additional stuff. Okay, so a lot of times we use URL and domain name interchangeably, and that's okay. But you need to realize that there is actually a difference between those two. And if you've got stuff besides just the domain name, then it's not really a domain name. It's a URL. Now the other thing that you need to know is that if I type in betterbooks.com into the domain name, it's automatically always going to go to the index.html page by default. So most servers automatically insert that in there. So even though it's not there, when you type in a domain name, it's automatically assumed that that's what you want it to do, is you want it to go to the index page in whatever subdirectory betterbooks.com is pointed at. So that's our information on domain names. So hopefully that you've gained something from that. You understand a little bit better about domain names, about what goes into making a good domain name, and how you can do that. You can register domain names to any number of places. Like I say, we like GoDaddy.com. We've worked with them for years and find them to be trustworthy and to do a good job. We have used other registrars who will go unnamed at this point, and we have had not as much luck with them. So we pretty much stick with GoDaddy because, what is it they say? when it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we stick with GoDaddy because they've worked for us well. And you can go directly to GoDaddy and you can register your name with them. You can go through and sort them out. Also, if you want a little help with it, we actually register domain names too, and so you can contact some of our staff here and they will register a domain name for you. I didn't put up a slide, but one of the things I wanted to make sure you knew as well, you need to be careful with domain names because, you know, if you haven't figured out that there are wolves on the internet yet, you will soon the hard way. But if you always remember there are wolves out there just waiting for you to, you know, make a misstep. There are wolves on the internet, and one of the tactics is what's called domain hijacking. Okay, and it is very, very common. We see it virtually every day. We see it, and what they do is, you know, they'll look at domain names out there, and they'll go through, and they'll see when they're about to expire. Now, when you register your domain name, it's not really yours. You're just basically paying a registration fee for a certain period of time. The minimum is a year, okay, and you can get more than that. And you save money by buying more. But let's say you bought a domain name for a year. The wolves out there are going to see when it's close to time, if it's coming close, that you're going to have to pay that and renew it, okay? And then they have figured out, you know, maybe just a little time before you get the actual renewal notification, and they put together a bogus, phony renewal bill. And so you'll get a bill in the mail. Here, it's time to renew your domain name. And you'll get this wonderful bill, and it looks official and everything. And it's really a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's not the bill from the company that you've registered your domain name with, okay? And it may look real close to it, but it's not. It's not a sheep. It's a wolf, and he's trying to get you. And what happens is that they will grab your domain name once you register it and you pay them. First of all, they got your money, and second of all, then they will grab control of your domain name, and it may be a little hard to get it back, okay? So watch out for the wolves. And you know, when a sheep comes up, make sure it's a sheep. When you get a bill from a domain name company, you know, make sure that the address that it's going back to is the real company, and it's not going to your friendly neighborhood wolf trying to hijack your domain name. And we get emails that come in. We actually get letters in the mail, and we have to sort through those. And so one of the things that we do, they're basically 2 additional services that you get when you register from us. We charge a little bit more, okay? You can go and register your domain name yourself, and you can save money. Unless you get a wolf on your tail, and then it may end up costing you more in the long run. But the 2 things that we do, one is we're used to the wolves. So, you know, when we see a wolf come up, we can bop it on the nose. And so when we get the bills and stuff, we know who our registrars are, and we pay for it and everything, and so we can sort the wolves and the sheep for you. So that's one of the services that we do additionally when we register the domain name. The other thing that we'll see happen that we do with that service is a big problem is that somehow you forget or you're out of town or something, and so you don't get the money back in when that renewal rolls around. And I mean, we've had people that have had a domain name and they've owned it for, you know, 8 years or something like that, and they've got a lot of money invested in branding it, and people know where it is, and then they're out of the country or out of town when the bill comes in, and so it sits in their inbox and they don't pay it, and that domain name goes into redemption, okay, which means that basically their website goes down because now there's not a card catalog thing to get to it anymore. And they can actually lose their domain name. And we've had customers lose their domain name because they didn't get it paid on time, okay? And so part of the thing that we do here is we try to get a hold of you. And if we don't get a hold of you, our policy is we go ahead and pay for it, and we try to find you later so that you don't automatically lose that domain name because, you know, you're out of the country or something, and we try to catch up with you and collect later. But those are 2 things that we include with the registration service. You can certainly do those yourself, but watch out for wolves and make sure that you get them paid on time so you don't lose the domain name and lose all of the things that you have built up into it. So anyway, We will now open it up for questions. So if anyone has a question, you can click on the little hand box and raise your hand, and I'll unmute your microphone. Or you could, there's a question box if you open up the little window by pushing the orange arrow button. You can type a question into the question box, and I would be happy to answer any questions for you that I can. Don't have any questions in our box right now. Really not too complicated of a topic, but I think an important one to make sure that you know and understand. So we don't have any questions at this point, so we'll go ahead and wrap up this training session. We would certainly like to thank everyone for coming. We are recording all of these sessions and putting them up as quickly as we can on the Launch to Success website. So if you want to go out there and see other videos, or we're doing webinars every week. Actually, next week we've got 2 webinars coming up. So if you would like to register for those, go out to the Launch to Success website as well. From the main page, if you just click on Member Access, it doesn't require a password or anything. You can just click on Member Access, and that will give you access to all of the videos that we've got recorded and out there so far. Also will give you access to the schedule of all the upcoming live training seminars that you can go to and join us. So we'd certainly like to thank everyone for coming today. We hope that you got some good information and that you can get some good domain names and that you can avoid the wolves in sheep clothing. So hope you have a great day, and hopefully we will see you back next week. So thanks for coming.